Good morning, everyone. I am Nick Rishwain. I'm the host of LegalTechLIVE. I will be the only host today because Ivan Rakelin, my co-host, is in transit in the Middle East. And we are here today with a little background on me. I have never practiced law. I went to law school. I'm a recovering government employee, and I've been working in the legal tech sector for about 6 years now. And LegalTechLIVE, this is going on about 9 months that LegalTechLIVE has been happening. With us today, we have Kimball Parker. Kimball is the CEO of CoCounsel.co, formerly with Quinn Emanuel. Went to the Chicago Law School, University of Chicago Law School, and it looks like you as well have some previous recovering government employment work from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Kimball, tell me a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so I graduated in 2013 from the University of Chicago. I immediately started working for Quinn Emanuel, which is a big litigation law firm, and so I'm a litigator, and I worked there about 2.5 years, and branched off and started doing CoCounsel.
All right. Yeah. And tell us what CoCounsel does. You probably heard me sing your praises in our preliminary attempts to get you online, that I've been really excited about this interview because it's not specifically law practice management or e-discovery, which are commonly understood in the legal tech industry. Like that is a big section of legal tech these days, are those two areas, and you're doing something completely different, which is you are trying to map the law. And tell us what you mean by that.
Yeah, so basically, that there's a major problem with our legal system, and it's really that the law is not accessible. It's very difficult to find and understand the law for anyone, including me, and I'm a trained lawyer. And so this problem creates issues that really kind of affect the foundation of fairness in our country. Basically, people of middle to low economic status are getting reamed because they don't understand their legal rights. And so I'm trying to fix that. I guess there are a lot of causes for this, but let me give you one example of kind of someone not understanding something. This is actually how the company got started.
Okay.
I tried a case about a year and a half ago for Quinn Emanuel. It was a breach of fiduciary duty case, and I was very involved in the case. I worked on it about a year. It went to trial. After the trial, when I finally was able to breathe from working so hard, I had dinner with a friend who was starting a business. And during the dinner, my friend told me that he was being sued for breach of fiduciary duty. So, in fact, the exact type of breach of fiduciary duty that I had just tried. It's called corporate opportunity.
Right.
And so he was completely panicked. He thought his business was going to be tanked, or that was a possibility, at least. And he didn't know what to do. He didn't know how serious the lawsuit was, and he really didn't know how to move forward. So that was a really interesting experience for me because corporate opportunity, breach of fiduciary duty, corporate opportunity is so easy. Okay. It's really just four factors.
Okay.
And so anybody who knows those four factors could basically self-assess. They would still have to get a lawyer to go through all the procedure and everything, but they could at least make intelligent decisions on what to do. But it took us a long time to get those four factors right. So basically what I came to realize is that the law it's difficult to assemble. It's difficult to assemble accurately, but once it's assembled, it's actually not that difficult to understand. Okay.
If you take it from case law in things like that, and you break it down to like the black letter law, black letter is pretty easy to understand.
That's right. The black letter really is the compilation of hundreds, thousands of cases condensed. That's why, again, it's difficult to assemble it because you need to compress all of that data into, here are the 4 factors. Here's like 2 sub-factors from this factor.
Right.
And so you need to compress that down. That takes a long time, and it's very difficult. But once it's compressed, then, you can figure it out. Okay. So this my friend was having such a hard time. He didn't know what to do. He didn't know whether his suit was a big deal on possibly one of the easiest legal issues to figure out.
Okay.
And so that made me think. That was last spring of 2015. That kind of started to make me think about how the law is structured and how to make it easier. And so what happened is I got together with a friend from Google who does. He's a big data guy at Google, and we kind of brainstormed ways that we could kind of make this information easy to consume.
Okay.
So what we realize is that the law has a logical structure to it, and much like genealogy or like an organizational flowchart. And nobody tries to write genealogy out in words. Right. I mean, I guess there are sections of the Bible that tried to write out genealogy in words, and it's like chloroform in print. Right. It's difficult to understand, and really you can only even track one line. You couldn't branch off and show a big genealogy tree in words. It just doesn't make any sense. And the same thing with an organizational chart. Basically, you don't see that in paragraphs and pages laid out. You see it in a one-page organizational chart, kind of flow chart,
titled with categorical titles, essentially.
Exactly. So basically, anytime that there is a core of internal logic, when there's a strong core of internal logic, we typically display that in a flowchart or some kind of other graph. And the law has that in spades. I mean, most of the law can be kind of clumped together in general categories, and then tests, and then factors and sub-factors, and it really kind of has a logical flowchart form. Okay. And so we thought, well, okay, we maybe we could make it easier for people to understand the law by making it into a chart, making it basically everything into a chart, basically making a mind map that is catered to the law, where you can see the flowchart, you can get into it, and then get all the cases that kind of support that point. So that was kind of in the summer of 2015 and in the fall that we developed that. What happened, and that now is kind of the way that we're running this now, is that the dean of BYU's law school, his name is Gordon Smith. He saw this and he wanted to make it into a teaching tool. Okay. So basically, law school, it's really the same problem if you think about it. Law school is all reading and lecturing. Mm-hmm. There's very little tech in law classes. Right. Maybe PowerPoint. But, 65% of people are visual learners. Mm-hmm. And so he was concerned. He had looked at these stats. He was a little concerned that maybe some students were being left behind. And so he actually is the first person. He came up with the idea of using this in class as an interactive learning activity. And so ironically, he taught fiduciary law, which is kind of where this started.
So this all started with a breach of a fiduciary duty.
That's right. That's right. And so he and his fiduciary law class, they started mapping fiduciary law. Okay. And so he decided to do it in December, and then it started to snowball. We got 5 other classes that mapped the law in the spring term. And so what we do now basically is classes map the law as an interactive learning activity, and professors have used it and loved it, and it's been very helpful for them.
I think it's brilliant that you're now, because that brings me to some questions about it, but it seems to be right now, are you more focused on using it in the law schools and getting the students to help map it out? Is that what's happening right now?
Yeah, so classes map it as an interactive learning activity, and then we take those maps at the end of the term. The professor usually likes to clean them up for a month or two.
Okay.
And then we release them.
Okay.
And then that map is open to crowdsourcing. And so then lawyers and whoever can get on and they can update the map or they can add to it. A lot of these maps are kind of a basic structure.
Sure.
And then people can go on and crowdsource it and kind of build out these maps more and more and more. And so we have five classes used it last term. We're going to release those maps, I think, except for fiduciary duty, actually. I think the dean wants a little bit more time with it.
Okay.
We're going to do that at the end of this month. And then a whole new slate of classes are coming in from all over the place. The UK, there's going to be a class in South Africa, it looks like, that may do it. I think by the end of the year, we'll have a class in Canada and in Australia. And
awesome.
So classes, so we're really mapping a lot of different areas of law. Basically, anywhere where there's a common law system,
mm-hmm.
this kind of mapping really lends itself to that kind of system.
That's fascinating, and that you were able to get, just based on this idea now, as many are well aware, being online, by virtue of being online, it's international. The business becomes
That's
international.
Right. That's right.
But it sounded like you were maybe starting with U.S. law. Was that federal law only? Is that the beginning? Were you starting with federal law and then you were going to break it down to the states?
So basically, yeah. So good question. Basically, we will map whatever people want to map.
Okay.
Whether that's federal law or state law. So for example, we had some lawyers in Utah who wanted to map Utah medical malpractice. And so we have mapped the entirety of Utah medical malpractice law. As in, there are 415 cases published on Utah medical malpractice, and we have mapped the logic of every one of those cases.
Interesting.
And so you can go on, and if you are injured in a medical malpractice in Utah, you can see every case, and you can see how the logic breaks down. They're big sections. There's elements and defenses and remedies, and you can sort through it.
So you'll see what the duty was, what the breach, how they established a breach, what causation is, and remedies and things like that. Those elements are broken down.
Exactly. You can go on right now and you can see even the different duties that have come out in the case law. So for example, like a physician has a different duty than a doctor. And so if you've been injured by a physician, you can go on and see that. If you're injured by a pharmacist and a doctor, you can go on and see the pharmacist duty, a nurse duty. You can go on and see for causation. For example, in Utah, you have to have an expert witness. Mm-hmm. And so you can go on and see every case that has addressed whether you need an expert witness to prove causation and what the exceptions are, when you don't need an expert witness.
Interesting.
And so, for example, a person who's injured for medical malpractice can go on. They'll probably have to hire a lawyer. They should hire a lawyer. This is just a treatise, basically.
Right.
But they could go on and say, like, hey, I noticed in your motion you weren't raising this defense. Why not? Because we have those defenses listed. Or they could say, well, you raised this defense, but you don't cite Smith v. United States.
Right.
Why not? It seems like it applies because we give, each case has a little summary. So, I think that once the maps are up, I think it's kind of like if you had like a guide to a car. A lot of lay people, when they use a lawyer, it's like going to a mechanic. They don't know what they're doing.
Sure.
They don't know why they're citing this case or that case or this defense and not that one.
Right.
It's like going into a mechanic and the mechanic's saying, well, you need a new engine.
Right.
You think, well, why? Why do I need this part and not that part? Why can't you use this cheaper one?
So CoCounsel becomes sort of a diagnostic manual to the law.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's it's going to create better informed consumers once the law is laid out. So we've done Utah medical malpractice thoroughly. We are going to use our goal. So besides the classes that are mapping these things, mm-hmm. we are starting with Utah, and we're going to try to map as much of Utah law as thoroughly as possible, basically starting with Utah medical malpractice. Utah it is an interesting state. There is a very strong sense of community in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've had our best feedback and participation for lawyers in Utah.
And I imagine part of that is, are you located in Utah?
So we just moved to Utah.
Okay.
So we were in Silicon Valley. That's where I was with Quinn Emanuel.
Okay.
Where I kind of founded the business. We just moved to Utah because I was flying out here like every other week to talk with firms, judges. So for example, there's a district of judges here in Salt Lake City, and they I'm going to meet with them. It's being set up by basically the chief judge of this district.
Okay.
And they're going to start using the medical malpractice map, and they may start uploading their unpublished decisions onto that map, because these lower Utah state courts, it's almost impossible to know what they're ruling because nothing gets published.
Okay.
And so anyway, so there's some support and backing here that's very exciting. And so we're gonna kind of focus on Utah, and then move into other states if other states become interested.
Excellent. So you have, from what I can see so far on the maps, you have two sections that are fully mapped. So it looks like U.S. patent law is fully mapped, and then the Utah medical malpractice. And then you said you've probably got 4 or 5 coming out in the near future.
That's right. So patent law. So we estimate there's maybe, I don't know, 50 to 100,000 useful cases in patent law. We have not done a deep dive in patent law like we did in Utah medical malpractice.
Okay.
But the basic structure of patent law is there.
Right.
For the most part, there's still some things that are missing, but people are kind of starting to add to it. It's starting to become an interesting place in there.
Excellent. And when you say, and I want to stop you there for a second and just say, so once the map is up there, it's been mapped by an original group of people. And now that the map's up there, I can, if I have some special knowledge in contracts or patents or something, then I can register, and then I can begin being a contributor. Is that how that works?
That's right. Right now, only lawyers, basically only people that are in law school or have been to law school can contribute.
Okay.
Anybody can go on and look at the public maps.
Okay.
But yeah, for example, you went to law school, so you could register, you could go on, and you could start contributing to these maps. Now, how it works is that within a branch, there's like a definition and cases, statutes, articles. You can also upload documents in case you have like a motion that touches on this subject. And so we're hoping that it becomes a little bit of a brief bank also. But when you can go on, if you look at a definition and you think, I don't think that's right,
okay,
or that's incomplete, okay, then you can write your own competing definition. And then it functions a little bit like Stack Overflow. If you're familiar with that, basically.
I'm not, but go ahead. I think I know where you're going.
Yeah. So basically, then the two definitions compete, and you can vote the best definition up. Okay. Now, if you see a definition and you think, I don't want to write a new one, I just know that this one is wrong, then you can flag it as inaccurate. Okay. And then we will sort it out with the author to figure it out. So hopefully it's self-sustaining. Also, every time you contribute, your name is attached to that contribution, and you can click into that person's profile and see everything that they've added. Okay. So between the accountability, having everything attached to a name, basically, and the fact, the voting system and the flagging as inaccurate, those are kind of the three mechanisms that we're using to keep the content good. To keep it accurate, to keep it viable, and in order to, it's sort of that's your kind of check and balance on the contributors and what they are providing and make sure that it is accurate. That's right. So every time someone contributes, we get a notice. And so we'll look over it just briefly. You know, we won't do like a deep site check. We originally were doing that until we started to get that, 1,000 contributions a week. And then we kind of were overwhelmed. And so we just make sure that it makes sense. Okay. And then we kind of are, the crowd is correcting it and voting it and flagging things, and it's becoming a lively community.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So for the lay person, and I know there is a distinction that you make in one of your videos, but for the lay person, this is becoming sort of a Wikipedia for the law.
That's right.
And one of the differentiations that you make is that the contributors are not anonymous, and they do have are either in law school or have legal educations.
Yeah, that's right. I think there are two main differences with Wikipedia.
Okay.
The first is the one that you just touched on, which is that it's not anonymous. So your name is attached to everything you do. The second is that, basically the mapping structure caters it to the law. It's almost like you took a mind map and married it with Wikipedia.
Okay.
I mean, so you kind of see the logical structure. It's like Wikipedia if it were catered perfectly to the law.
Okay.
And so then it has some additional features, and it breaks down one thing that may be in one. So let me think of how to explain this. In Wikipedia, for example, a topic like patent lost profits damages.
Okay.
That may be one article.
Right.
And it may go through the whole thing. It may be like a really long article, like 10 pages that covers all of lost profits. On our site, that will be broken down into 10, 20 sub-articles. Right. It'll be lost profits. It'll be the factors, the 4 factors you need for patent lost profits. And then the tens, hundreds of sub-factors that go in and divide that up according to the factual circumstances.
Right. Okay. And that the tree would then expand, or the map would expand each time you clicked on a particular area. Whereas when I'm reading on Wikipedia, I scroll down at the bottom, there's the bibliography, and I can click to go over to what article they're citing. Whereas yours is expanding as you go.
Yeah. Really, one way to think of it is that the map is like a visual interactive table of contents.
Okay.
That helps you navigate through this massive information and pinpoint exactly where you need to go a lot faster. Basically.
Okay, excellent. So let's go, as we do talk with legal tech startups here, I do have some more kind of startup-based questions for you. Answer what you can. If it's proprietary, tell me, not going to answer it, Nick, and that's quite all right. But who is your target market with this? Is it lawyers? Is it law schools and students? Is it consumers? Who's your target market, if there is a specific one right now?
Yeah. So we're looking at this problem in different phases. Right now, our target market we have 2.
Okay.
One is law schools, school classes, and that's because they can map large areas of law very quickly.
Okay.
So we're trying to get as many law classes using the site and mapping on there as possible. So that's number 1. Number 2 is we're trying to get Utah lawyers to map. So we're trying to map as much of Utah law and kind of have that be our experiment with lawyers and mapping kind of a discrete group of laws.
It'll be your kind of exemplar product of, we were able to do it here, we can replicate this in your state.
That's right. And we're going to try to work with the bar in Utah. And then once we do that, once we work out all the kinks of how that works and what kind of credit they can get for, maybe MCLE or, things like that, then we will move to other bars and say, listen, we have opened up Utah law. Utah is the most transparent state in the nation for law. And that's what we want to do with Utah. We want to make Utah the most transparent state in the nation to make it as easy as possible for people to understand it. Once we do that, then we'll move to other states. We'll move to Colorado or Idaho or California. With that prize saying, we want to do the same thing for you.
Right.
We want to open up your law so that the average citizen can go on and find information. They don't have to go to a law library and check out a book. right? Or they don't have to order something from Amazon for $400
or
the
the $200 a month for Westlaw, which they probably don't even know about, but
couldn't use because they don't know how to search, they don't know how to read cases. I mean, yeah, exactly. And so they can just go on and find it. And so we're going to do that with Utah.
Okay.
And so yeah, those two targets for now.
Those are the two targets. Okay, great. And I have to ask, do you have any competitors in this space? Because this is new to me. I've done about 25 legal tech interviews now, video live interviews, and I have not seen this before. Do you know of anybody else who is trying to accomplish this?
Yeah, so I guess there are companies that are close to us. I mean, nobody is doing this exact kind of legal logical mapping, basically. Okay. Well, so separate professors are, but there's no businesses, right? Basically, so there's a professor out of Harvard who maps out big things for his class on his own. I guess I don't know what software he uses, but there's no company that kind of maps it out like this. Okay. I would say our closest competitor is probably Case Text. Okay. Although we don't really butt up. We don't butt up against them. They have crowdsourcing as well. So I think, yeah. So let me back up. On the crowdsourcing side, our competition is probably Case Text and Wikipedia, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, and you're in a really kind of a different spot from Wikipedia and what you're doing. You're more niche. You're more specific.
You know, what Case Text is they have a database of cases and statutes, and then you can write articles. It's kind of like instead of having your own blog, you can blog on Case Text. Okay. And so that doesn't really butt up against us. We're not really a legal blog. Right. You know, we're kind of like an interactive treatise. Although there's a little overlap there. I mean, it's kind of like there's a little overlap. So I'd say Case Text is probably our biggest competitor, but we don't actually see anybody exactly in the space we're in. In direct competition with you. That's right.
And that would lead me then to my next question, which is not an uncommon question. You say it's a business, whereas Wikipedia is like a 501c3 or something. You know, it's a nonprofit. Are you guys going to have? Is it going to be a membership based, or are you going to have ads? How will? Because you're doing some amazing things for the social justice aspect, and it seems that you want to do lots of open source. Will lawyers be members, or do you think law schools will purchase memberships for students to access it? I didn't see. I was wondering what your model was on that, if you can share.
Yeah. So we have it as basically we're a C corp. Okay. So. But we're running it like a nonprofit, essentially. So I am a litigator. I still litigate. So I now work for a firm here in Salt Lake City. All right. And kind of do this on the side with that. So everything is going to be free on the site forever.
Oh, all right.
So no one will ever be charged for accessing legal information on this site. Now, the reason why I want to keep it as a C corp is maybe we would let people copy the maps and then do things like store work product on it. So like if a law firm maybe wanted to organize their work product better, law firm work product storage is the biggest nightmare of all time.
Probably the reason that everybody is
in it.
Law practice management and things like that.
You know, it's funny. I actually think that the solution to storing law documents is this site, because if you map out patent law. So let me back up.
Sure.
How firms store work product is by case.
Okay.
It's by case.
That's right.
That doesn't make any sense to me at all. I mean, when someone searches, when I'm at a firm, when I'm at my firm and I want to search for a document, I'm searching by subject. I want to know everybody who's written something about amending a complaint. Right. That is not. I can't know that by the client.
Right.
I mean, so what I think firms should do is basically copy a map once it's done. And they should store their work product on the map. You know, so like a firm that does medical malpractice in Utah, they should just take my map, and they should just, every time they write about causation, they should just upload those documents onto causation, and we actually give them a private place.
Right.
And then whenever they want to see anything that the firm has ever written on causation, they can go to that section. And so it aligns how people actually want to see the information.
Right.
And so, you know, that's like way far off, but I actually think that's the best way to do it. And I guess if there's a way for us to charge law firms for this information, and then expand our enterprise to like open up the law at a much faster rate, then we're going to do that. But now we generate $0. Okay. We are not going to generate any money for a long time, and this is really like a big social justice product, and that's fine. I mean, I mean, this is something that I am going to dedicate my life to for the remainder of my career. Okay, is kind of mapping the law, opening up the law to regular people. You know, it's something, that I'm going to do regardless if I make any money on it or not. It's kind of something that I feel really strongly about and have seen the negative consequences for. So let me just give you one more story. My brother-in-law got divorced. Okay. And it was traumatic and sad. And he went to a lawyer. He was so worried about whether he was going to have to pay alimony. So he asked me, but I had a hard time finding it, and I'm not a family law attorney.
Right.
And so I said, listen, you're going to have to go to a family law attorney to figure this out. And so he paid like $300. And within 5 minutes, not even 5 minutes, like 10 seconds, this lawyer told him he didn't have to pay alimony. I mean, that is ridiculous. That is so ridiculous. That is something that should
the return on investment is.
It is unbelievable. I mean, that infuriates me. It infuriates me. I mean, that should be mapped out so that somebody can figure that out on their own in 5 minutes.
Right.
I mean, instead he had to go through days of worrying about it. He had to pay $300 to this guy to tell him that. Yeah. I mean, that is not how the system should work. What if you don't have $300? Yeah. I mean,
which is oftentimes an issue in a family law or in a small civil case or something like that. I have to spend $5,000 or $10,000 to get this resolved in a small civil case. That doesn't make sense.
And if you know that, you can approach the situation differently, right? I mean, so this happens all the time with criminal law, property law, all of these subjects. Those are actually the subjects that I want to map. I want to map criminal law. I want people to know what their rights are. You know,
the ones that you're talking about, the areas of law that affect the majority of the population. Yes. Not generally where big money is made working for smaller areas of the population in corporate law and things like that. You're talking about mapping the areas that impact almost everybody.
That's right. I want to map. I really want to map criminal law, and I have pled with professors to map criminal law. It just happens that the professors that teach criminal law are not the professors that are the most likely to use a tool like this. So we get a lot of professors who say, yeah, I want to map copyright law and trademark law and patent law, which is amazing because those actually affect a lot of people too.
They do.
I have basically looked up every professor in the Bay Area that teaches property law, criminal law, and it's just that's a little harder group. But that's where I want to go. I want to map criminal law so badly, and just open it up so that people know. For example, like what do I have to tell a police officer? Like, can I, if a police officer wants to search my car or my home, what are my options?
Right.
I mean, there's so many criminal law situations that you could map out easily for people.
Yeah.
And open up that whole area of law so that people stop getting taken advantage of. And I mean, that happens in a lot of different areas. But yeah, I mean, this is something that I don't know. I just feel so strongly about it.
It would simplify the lives of a lot of people who don't understand the law, who maybe are often victims, or what we would view as victims of the criminal justice system.
That's right.
From a lack of understanding, or because they had to accept a public defender who already has 1,000 cases. So
Yes.
to speed it along, he had to advise them to plead it out rather than, you know what, this is what I'm looking at. So you want it for if you're literate and you have a problem, yes, you can kind of get your own guidance before you seek the assistance of an attorney.
Yeah. For example, let's say your landlord increases your rent. You're in California. Your landlord increases your rent by 30%, within a week of you renewing your lease.
Right.
Okay? I mean, you think that's not fair. I don't know why that's not fair. There's got to be some kind of law against this. And where do you find that? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know, but there are laws. You can't raise rent over 10% unless you give, 2 months notice or a month's notice.
Right.
And so you could go on and find the kind of the renter's portion of this.
Right.
And go on and figure that out. I mean, you can use it both as a prophylactic.
Yeah.
To help you navigate those situations where then you could write back to your landlord and say, well, under California law, if you're going to raise it 20% or 30%, you should have told me 3 weeks ago. And now you can raise it up to 10%. Sorry.
Yeah. And cite the statute, cite the code for
yes.
Them. That's me representing myself pro se without having to seek legal assistance.
Yes, exactly. You don't need to go to some lawyer to ask him that. You shouldn't have to.
Shouldn't have to.
For something like that. That is ridiculous. I mean, you should be able to handle that and be able to have that information. And so anyway, so that's our ambition, is to make that all accessible. We're going to start with Utah, and we're going to see where it goes.
That's fantastic. And that, we usually do about 40 to 45 minutes, and that is, I think, a great place for us to wrap it up. I'm thrilled to have you on, Kimball. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I can tell I love the passion you have for this, because I can feel the passion, and that gets me excited about what people are doing with legal tech and what they're doing to innovate and push things forward. So about this time of the show, right before we end, I like to ask, and Ivan had, if he were able to be here, would also ask, what can we do to help you?
Yeah, gosh, a great question. I think this helps a lot. Just letting people know that there's this site that they can go on and basically contribute their legal information to. People and lawyers are mapping the law all the time. And then that information is just wasted, and a lot of it's not confidential. There's no reason why you can't share it.
Right.
And so, we want to create a place where you can share all of that information, put it in a format that regular people can understand, and you can really make a difference helping the law become more accessible. And so, I think just kind of letting people know that this exists, and for people that have a kind of a sense of community and that want to do that, that there's a place for them here.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And that's it's really nice to see. I think almost everybody that we've had on thus far has been a for-profit organization. Not to say that, and I don't mean that in a bad way, because you've got to make a living, but it's nice to see that you're doing something here. Pretty much anything in the legal tech that's for-profit is generally going to reduce the cost of litigation. Almost everything that I've seen, if we can get attorneys to adopt it, they will reduce overall cost. This is one of those items that may, as you said, act as a prophylactic or prevent you from having to seek legal assistance in the first place, at least in small increments. And that's what it takes to make an impact. And that is it for today. Don't go away after I stop recording. You don't have to just disappear right away. But what I'll do, I'll tell you in a minute. But can you tell us where people can get a hold of you? I've posted CoCounsel.co in the notes here. I will post it again. How else, if they wanted to be a contributor, or they wanted to search the site, or they wanted to contact you because they want to interview you on their podcast or show, how would they do that?
Yeah, so you can contact me via Twitter, either through our CoCounsel Twitter account, which is CoCounsel Co. That's the at CoCounsel Co. Or through my own Twitter account, which is Kimball Dean Parker, I think, at Kimball Dean Parker.
Okay.
And so that's you can contact me through Twitter or email at kimball@cocounsel.co. So let me I'll type it in the comments here.
Great.
Um,
And I am putting your personal down here now. And we've got the email, kimball@cocounsel.co. So that's where you can get a hold of Kimball Parker, CEO of CoCounsel.co. Thanks again, Kimball. What you're doing is really exciting stuff. I look forward to watching it grow, and maybe in 6 months or a year, have you come back on and tell us where you guys are at with mapping the law.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nick. Great show, and thank you for having me on.
Thank you. All right, everybody. Thanks for coming to Legal Tech Live today, or for listening to the replay, and hope to see you on the next episode.